My parents have left me out of every family vacation for over 20 years, saying, "You never fit in on trips, it's better if we don't take you." But when I went on a 5-star, all expenses paid vacation with my new family, they completely lost it. The first time my parents left me behind, I was 8 years old. Summer vacation had just begun, and for weeks I'd meticulously drawn beaches and swaying palm trees, convinced this was finally our family trip. From her doorway, I'd watched my sister, Lydia, pack her vibrant purple suitcase with swimsuits and flip-flops, while my own empty duffel bag sat on my bed, a silent, hopeful sentinel. My mother, bustling past me 3 times that afternoon, her arms laden with travel-sized toiletries and sunscreen, never once hinted I should start packing. "Where's my suitcase?" I finally dared to ask Dad as he loaded the car. He didn't even turn around. "You're staying with Grandma Ruth this week." My small world tilted. "But I thought we were going to Florida." "We are," he said, slamming the trunk shut with a finality that echoed in my chest. "You get car sick, honey. Remember last year when we drove to Ohio? You threw up twice." My parents had talked about it, he explained, deciding it was better if I sat this one out. I remembered that Ohio trip. I'd thrown up once, yes, but only because Lydia had consumed an entire bag of sour gummies and then, with malicious glee, kept breathing her rancid breath directly into my face. Even at 8, the car sickness excuse was so transparent I could see through it, right to the burning shame on the other side. Grandma Ruth lived a mere 40 minutes away, in a house perpetually smelling of mothballs and stale newspapers. She was kind, in a distant, almost academic way, the type of grandmother who inquired about school but never retained the answers. I spent that week glued to game shows on her ancient television, while my family's postcards from Miami Beach trickled in. Lydia's sprawling handwriting would announce, "The ocean is amazing. Wish you were here." "Not really." The "not really" was always followed by a crude smiley face, as if cruelty gained humor with punctuation. They returned, bronzed and relaxed, brimming with tales of dolphin sightings and fresh seafood. I, meanwhile, had gained 2 pounds from Grandma Ruth's endless supply of butter cookies and learned a single, searing truth: I wasn't worth bringing along. This pattern, a quiet exclusion, became the defining rhythm of my childhood. Every major trip, every vacation demanding planning or expense, somehow didn't include me. At 10, they journeyed to Yellowstone. I was relegated to Aunt Lorraine's house, where she worked night shifts, leaving me alone with frozen dinners and basic cable. At 12, they explored Washington, D.C., while I endured a week at a day camp designed for kids whose parents couldn't afford proper childcare. The teenage counselors spent their time scrolling phones, and our days were an endless, mind-numbing loop of the same 4 games. "You wouldn't enjoy the museums," Mom had rationalized when I dared to ask why I couldn't come. "You hate walking, and D.C. requires a lot of walking." That year I ran track. I'd placed 3rd in the district championships for the mile run just 2 months prior. Mom had missed that meet too, because she was getting her nails done for family photos. The ones they took without me because my expression was weird in the test shots. Lydia, however, went on every trip. Lydia, who genuinely did get car sick, once vomiting on a tour bus in front of 30 strangers. Lydia, who complained about walking from the couch to the kitchen. But Lydia was the golden child, the one who mirrored Mom's features, who laughed on cue at Dad's awful jokes, who perfected the head tilt that granted her every wish. I, on the other hand, resembled Dad's side of the family, all sharp angles and dark features that Mom described as striking, in a tone that undeniably meant unfortunate. I didn't laugh at the right times. I asked too many questions. I pointed out inconsistencies and called out unfairness, which, in their narrative, made me difficult and exhausting. By the time I turned 16, I'd stopped asking about vacations altogether. That summer, they went to California, to some luxury resort in San Diego with a spa and ocean views. For the first time, I stayed home alone, and it felt like a silent victory. No more forced, awkward conversations with relatives who barely knew me. No more pretending to be fine while everyone else reveled in their freedom. I got a job at a local coffee shop, working morning shifts, meticulously saving every paycheck. Something profound had crystallized within me during those 2 weeks of solitude. My family didn't want me around, and for years I'd tortured myself trying to decipher why, trying to fix whatever flaw made them abandon me. But maybe, just maybe, nothing was wrong with me. Maybe they were simply cruel. College couldn't come fast enough. I'd worked relentlessly throughout high school, saved aggressively, and applied for every scholarship imaginable. State school, nothing glamorous, but it was 6 hours away, and that distance felt like salvation. Mom shed theatrical tears at my graduation, big, performative sobs that drew sympathetic pats from relatives. "My baby's leaving," she wailed into Dad's chest. I wanted to laugh. She'd spent my entire life trying to leave me behind. Now, finally, I was doing it myself. My first year away was lonely, yes, but undeniably liberating. I dove into business administration, worked part-time at the campus library, and meticulously built a life that had no connection to the family vacations I'd never been invited on. Lydia called occasionally, usually when she needed something, her voice syrupy sweet as she asked if I could review her college application essays or untangle some problem born of her own carelessness. "You're so good at this stuff," she'd coo. And I'd help her, because some pathetic, deeply ingrained part of me still craved her elusive approval. I graduated with honors and secured a job at a marketing firm in Chicago. The work was demanding but rewarding, and I discovered a knack for digital strategy that my bosses genuinely appreciated. I rented a tiny studio apartment in a slowly gentrifying neighborhood, forged friendships with coworkers who actually enjoyed my company, and built something that belonged entirely to me. My family visited once in 3 years. They were in Chicago for Lydia's bachelorette party, and Mom, acting as if she were bestowing an immense favor, suggested meeting for brunch. I met them at an overpriced cafe in River North, where Lydia dominated the conversation for 90 minutes straight, flashing her ring and rattling off wedding plans. "You'll be a bridesmaid, of course," she declared, her tone implying this was a generous offer rather than a basic expectation. The wedding itself was precisely as insufferable as I'd anticipated. I wore the ugly dress, plastered on a smile for the photos, and delivered a toast that Lydia's friends politely described as sweet, but kind of weird. I tried to be genuine, to speak of our shared childhood and the beautiful, brutal complexity of sisterhood, but apparently, people preferred generic platitudes about love and happiness. After the wedding, my contact with them dwindled to maybe twice a year, Thanksgiving and Christmas. Obligatory appearances where I played my assigned role as the family's token achiever. Look at her successful career. Look at her impressive apartment. They displayed me like a trophy when it suited them, yet never truly invited me into their lives. The vacation thing, naturally, continued. They journeyed to Italy for Mom and Dad's 30th anniversary. A week in the Bahamas for Lydia's first anniversary. A cruise through the Greek islands 2 summers later. Each trip meticulously documented on social media. Hundreds of photos of my family looking happy and impossibly close, while I scrolled through them alone in my apartment, a ghost haunting someone else's life. "We didn't think you'd be able to get time off work," Mom had casually remarked when I'd inquired about the Greece trip. "You're always so busy with your career." I had 4 weeks of vacation time that year. I'd mentioned it during our last phone call. Something broke in me after that. Not dramatically, not all at once, but quietly and completely. I'd spent my entire life trying to earn a place in my family, trying to be good enough or interesting enough or worthy enough to be included. I was done. I stopped calling as frequently, stopped trying to coordinate visits, stopped performing the role of grateful daughter, supposed to appreciate whatever scraps of attention they tossed my way. They barely noticed. Then I met Warren. He worked in finance, had kind eyes, and a laugh that made me feel like I'd said something genuinely clever, not just acceptable. We met at a networking event, of all places, bonding over terrible wine and our shared observation that everyone else in the room was trying too hard. He asked me to dinner, then to another, and suddenly 6 months had vanished, and I couldn't imagine my life without him. Warren's family was everything mine wasn't. His parents, Patricia and Roger, actually listened when you spoke. His sister, Kimberly, included me in group texts and inside jokes without making it feel like hazing. Their family dinners were places where people asked about your day and genuinely meant it, where laughter bubbled up from authentic humor, not performance. Your family seems nice, Warren observed carefully after meeting my parents for the first time. We'd driven down for Christmas, and the visit had been predictably awkward. Mom had spent the entire time comparing me to Lydia, who had recently had her first child and was, apparently, now a parenting expert despite being visibly overwhelmed. "They're fine," I'd said, a reflex honed over decades. "They barely asked you anything about your life." He countered. "That's pretty standard." He looked at me for a long moment, his expression etched with a sadness that made my chest tighten. "That's not okay." I'd spent so long normalizing my family's behavior that having someone point out its strangeness felt disorienting, like I'd walked with a limp for years and someone finally asked why I was hurt. Warren proposed on a weekend trip to Michigan. Nothing elaborate, just the two of us on a beach at sunset. I said yes before he'd even finished the question. We planned a small wedding, mostly his family and my friends from college and work. My parents came, of course, though Mom spent half the reception talking about Lydia's wedding and how traditional and elegant it had been. Translation: Lydia's wedding cost 3 times as much and adhered to all the proper social conventions. I didn't care. I was marrying someone who actually wanted me around. The first year of marriage was a beautiful blur of adjusting, growing, and building our life together. Warren was promoted to senior analyst. I became director of digital strategy at my firm. We bought a townhouse in Lincoln Park, spent weekends antiquing and trying new restaurants, traveled to Portland and Austin and Montreal. Small trips, nothing extravagant, but they were ours. Then Patricia and Roger announced their 40th wedding anniversary trip. "We want to do something really special," Patricia said over family dinner, looking directly at me when she spoke. "A real celebration with everyone we love." They'd rented a villa in Tuscany for 2 weeks. Not a hotel, not a resort, but an actual Italian villa with a chef, a pool, and breathtaking views of rolling vineyards. They booked rooms for Warren and me, for Kimberly and her husband, for Roger's brother and his wife. 14 people in total, all expenses paid. 2 weeks in Italy during peak season. "I can't accept this," I blurted out immediately. "This must cost a fortune." "Your family," Roger said simply. "This is what we want to do." I cried in the car on the way home, a raw, ugly sob. Warren held my hand as years of exclusion and hurt finally spilled out. Someone wanted me on their vacation. Someone thought I was worth the expense, worth the trouble, worth including. "We're going," Warren said firmly. "You deserve this." I requested the time off work immediately. My boss approved it within an hour, congratulating me on the trip and telling me I'd earned the break. I bought new clothes, proper luggage, a camera that could finally capture the kind of photos I'd seen from other people's Italian vacations my whole life. Then I made a mistake. I told my mother. We were on the phone discussing some mundane detail about Lydia's daughter's birthday party, and Patricia's anniversary trip came up naturally. I mentioned it casually, not bragging, just sharing news the way normal families do. "Tuscany?" Mom's voice went sharp. "For 2 weeks?" "Yes, they rented a villa for the whole family." "How nice." The words were ice. Must be lovely to be so included. The guilt hit me immediately, like she'd pressed a button installed in my chest 30 years ago. "Mom, your father and I are planning our anniversary trip to, our 35th. Not that anyone seems to care." "I didn't know you were planning something." "Well, we are, but obviously nothing as fancy as a villa in Tuscany. We're just simple people who don't need extravagant displays of wealth to feel loved." She hung up before I could respond. I should have known that wouldn't be the end of it. My phone started ringing constantly. Mom called 3 times the next day, leaving increasingly frantic voicemails about how hurt she was, how ungrateful I'd become, how I'd obviously chosen Warren's family over my own. Dad sent a long, stern email about responsibility and priorities and how disappointed he was in my choices. Lydia texted, "Really? You're going to Italy while Mom and Dad are struggling?" Classy. My parents weren't struggling. Dad had just retired with a full pension and substantial savings. Mom worked part-time at a boutique because she enjoyed it, not because they needed the income. They owned their house outright in the suburbs and took at least 2 vacations a year, including their upcoming 33rd anniversary trip to Napa Valley they'd mentioned at Christmas. But apparently I was supposed to feel guilty for accepting an invitation they'd never extended. The messages escalated. Mom started calling Warren's parents. These rambling phone calls where she explained how I was pulling away from my real family, and how concerned she was about my judgment. She'd somehow gotten their number from a relative. Patricia handled it with grace and quiet astonishment, but I was mortified. "They've called 6 times this week," Warren said, his patience visibly fraying. "Your mother left a 20-minute voicemail about how we're creating division in the family. I'm so sorry. Don't apologize. This is insane. You're allowed to go on vacation." But the guilt was crushing. My family had spent decades making me feel like I was the problem, and old patterns die hard. I started wondering if I should cancel the trip. If keeping the peace was worth giving up Tuscany. Then, the photo album arrived. Mom mailed it to our house. No note attached. Just a leather-bound album filled with family vacation photos spanning 25 years. Every trip they'd taken without me. Carefully documented and arranged. Miami, Yellowstone, D.C., California, Italy, the Bahamas, Greece. Page after page of my parents and Lydia smiling on beaches and at landmarks and in restaurants, living a vibrant family life that never included me. The last page held a photo from their most recent trip to Colorado. They'd gone skiing last winter, just the 3 of them, and never mentioned it. In the picture they stood in front of a mountain lodge, arms around each other, looking like a complete family, because without me, they were. Warren found me on the kitchen floor, the album open in my lap, tears streaming down my face. "What is this?" He picked up the album, flipping through the pages with increasing horror. "She sent you this? Why would she send you this? I think she wants me to remember my place." "Your place?" His voice was shaking, an anger I rarely heard in him. "Your place is anywhere you damn well want to be. Your place is not begging for scraps from people who treat you like garbage." He was right. I'd spent 32 years accepting my family's treatment as somehow normal, somehow deserved. But looking at those photos, at decades of deliberate exclusion, something fundamental shifted. They'd never wanted me on their vacations. They'd made that abundantly clear. So why did they care where I went now? The answer was obvious and infuriating. They didn't want me around, but they also didn't want anyone else to want me. They needed me in my assigned role, the daughter who tried too hard, who was never quite good enough, who accepted exclusion with grace and gratitude. Me having a family who actually included me disrupted their entire narrative. I called Mom the next morning. "I got your package." "Oh, good. I thought you might like to reminisce." "Reminisce about all the trips you left me out of?" "Honey, we've talked about this. You never enjoyed family vacations. I was 8 years old the first time you left me behind. I didn't get a choice about whether I enjoyed them." "You're being dramatic." "I'm going to Tuscany, Mom. I'm going on a vacation with people who actually want me there, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it." "Of course you're going. You've made your priorities very clear." "Yes, I have. My priority is being around people who treat me with basic respect." I hung up before she could respond. The calls continued, but I stopped answering. Dad sent increasingly aggressive emails about loyalty and family obligations. Lydia texted essays about my selfishness and how I was breaking Mom's heart. I blocked them all. Warren's family didn't understand the drama. "Why are they so upset?" Kimberly asked over coffee. "They never took you on vacations anyway. That's exactly why they're upset." She shook her head. "That's toxic. It was. I just never had the distance to see it clearly. Tuscany was perfect. The villa was stone and stucco, with terracotta tiles and shuttered windows that opened to vineyard views. Our room had a balcony where we drank coffee every morning, watching the sun rise over the hills. Patricia's anniversary dinner was at a local restaurant with wine that tasted like summer and pasta made by someone's grandmother. We spent days exploring hilltop towns, learning bad Italian, eating gelato at every opportunity. Roger told terrible dad jokes in 3 languages. Kimberly and I got tipsy on Prosecco and laughed until we couldn't breathe. Warren held my hand through cobblestone streets and kissed me in front of the Duomo and told me I deserved this happiness. I believed him. I posted a few photos on social media. Nothing excessive, just some shots of the villa and the countryside. Warren and me at dinner, toasting with wine glasses. A sunset from our balcony. My phone exploded. Mom called 16 times in one day. Lydia sent a message that was just the word, seriously, repeated 12 times. Dad's email had the subject line, family emergency, and contained 3 paragraphs about betrayal. I didn't read past the first sentence. They're losing their minds, Warren observed, scrolling through the notifications. Your mom tried to friend request my cousin to see more photos. Should I delete the posts? I asked, a familiar tendril of guilt curling in my stomach. Absolutely not. You're on vacation. You're allowed to document it. He was right, but the guilt still gnawed at me. Some deeply programmed part of my brain kept insisting I was doing something wrong, that sharing my happiness was an act of aggression. Then Lorraine called. Aunt Lorraine, Mom's older sister, the one I'd stayed with during the Yellowstone trip. I almost didn't answer. We weren't close, but she'd always been kind in a hands-off sort of way. I saw your photos, she said. Italy looks beautiful. It's incredible. Good. I'm glad you're having a wonderful time. There was a pause. Your mother called me, Lorraine continued. She's very upset. I know. She wants me to tell you you're being selfish and cruel. My stomach dropped. And I told her she's out of her mind. Lorraine's voice was firm, unwavering. I remember the summer you stayed with me. You were 10 years old, and you cried yourself to sleep every night because you missed your family. Your parents were at Old Faithful, and you were in my guest room sobbing into a pillow. I'd forgotten about that. Or maybe I deliberately suppressed it. Your mother has been calling family members all week trying to get people on her side, Lorraine said. She's telling everyone you've abandoned the family, that you think you're too good for them now. She even showed me that photo album she sent you like it was evidence of something. Evidence of what? I think she thought it proved how much family time you'd missed. How left out you should feel. But all it proved to me is that she spent decades excluding you, and is now furious that you found people who don't. I started crying silently, tears running down my face while Lorraine talked. You don't owe them guilt, she said quietly. You don't owe them your happiness, or your vacation, or your peace of mind. You deserve to be somewhere you're wanted. After we hung up, I sat on the balcony and let myself feel everything I'd been suppressing. The hurt, the anger, the grief for the family I'd wanted but never truly had. Warren found me there an hour later, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and sat with me while I cried. I'm done, I said, the words feeling foreign yet true. Finally. I'm actually done. No more guilt. No more trying. They don't want me in their life except as someone to blame, and I'm not doing it anymore. Warren kissed my forehead. Good. The rest of the vacation was lighter, imbued with a newfound freedom. I turned off notifications from my family and focused on being present. We took a cooking class where I learned to make pasta from scratch. We visited wineries and medieval churches and got gloriously lost in Florence looking for a restaurant Roger swore existed but probably didn't. We stayed up late playing cards and telling stories. And I felt something settle in my chest that had been unsettled my entire life. This was what family could be. This was what it felt like to belong. We came home tanned and happy, with a suitcase full of olive oil and wine and ceramic bowls from a market in Siena. I posted a final photo, Warren and me at the airport, smiling genuinely, the caption reading, "Best 2 weeks ever. Grateful for family." The messages were immediate and vicious. "Mom, I hope you're proud of yourself. Dad, you've made your choice clear. Don't come crying to us when Warren's family gets tired of you, too. Lydia, you're dead to me." I blocked all 3 of them. The next few months were strange. I kept expecting to feel guilty, to regret cutting them off so completely. Instead, I felt lighter, freer, like I'd been carrying a crushing weight I hadn't fully acknowledged, and someone had finally lifted it. Patricia and Roger invited us over for Sunday dinner every week. Kimberly texted memes and random thoughts at odd hours. I had a family that actually functioned like one, and I stopped apologizing for it. Then Thanksgiving happened. Aunt Lorraine called to warn me. "Your mother is planning a big Thanksgiving dinner. She's telling everyone you'll be there, that you've come to your senses." "I'm not going." "I know, but she's telling people you are. And when you don't show up, she's going to make a scene about how you've abandoned her on the holidays. Let her. I'm just giving you a heads up. She's also invited several family members you haven't seen in years. I think she wants witnesses to your rejection." I spent Thanksgiving with Warren's family. Patricia made turkey with all the traditional sides. Roger told the story about the time he accidentally deep-fried a turkey still partially frozen and nearly burned down the garage. Kimberly's kids ran around, hyped up on pie. It was chaotic and warm, and exactly what a holiday should be. My phone stayed silent all day. Then around 9 p.m., the messages started. Cousins I barely knew asking why I'd missed Thanksgiving. Relatives I hadn't spoken to in years telling me Mom was heartbroken. A group chat I'd been added to without consent, filled with family members discussing my selfishness. I left the group chat and turned off my phone. "They won't stop," I told Warren. "They're going to keep doing this. Then we keep ignoring them." But it escalated. Mom showed up at my office, making a scene in the lobby about how I'd abandoned her. She stood there crying, telling the receptionist that her daughter wouldn't speak to her, that she just wanted to understand what she'd done wrong. Security escorted her out, but the damage was done. My coworkers whispered. My boss called me into a meeting to gently inquire if everything was all right at home. "My mother is harassing me," I said bluntly. "I've asked her to stop contacting me, and she's now showing up at my workplace. Do you need help? We have resources for employees dealing with family issues." I filed a report with HR documenting the incident. Mom called it making a mockery of family. When Aunt Lorraine told her what I'd done, Christmas came. We went to Patricia and Roger's, exchanged gifts, watched terrible holiday movies. My phone stayed off. I didn't check social media. I existed in a bubble of chosen family and genuine warmth. Then the letter arrived. It came from a lawyer's office, formal and intimidating. My parents were threatening legal action for grandparents' rights, claiming I was preventing them from having a relationship with future grandchildren. I didn't have children, Warren and I hadn't even discussed it seriously yet. "This is harassment," Warren said, reading over my shoulder. "Pure harassment designed to intimidate you." I called the lawyer the next morning. She reviewed the letter and laughed. "They have no case," she said. "You don't have children, and even if you did, grandparents' rights are extremely limited. This is a scare tactic. Can we do anything? We can send a cease and desist. If they continue contacting you after that, we can pursue a restraining order for harassment." The cease and desist went out that week. My parents had 10 days to stop all contact or face legal consequences. They responded with a Facebook post. Mom wrote this long, rambling statement about how I'd turned my back on family, how they'd tried everything to maintain a relationship, how Warren's family had poisoned me against them. She posted the photo album, every single page, with captions about all the family memories they tried to include me in. The comments were mixed. Some people bought the narrative, leaving sympathetic responses about how painful it must be to lose a daughter. But others saw through it. Aunt Lorraine commented. Interesting how all these family memories happened without her. Cousins started commenting, too, pointing out how rarely I'd been at family events, how often I'd been excluded. The narrative Mom was trying to build started crumbling in real time. She deleted the post within 6 hours, but screenshots live forever. Someone sent me the whole thread, and I saved every word. My lawyer was delighted. This establishes a pattern of harassment and defamation. If you want to pursue a restraining order, we have grounds. I thought about it for a week. A restraining order felt nuclear, final, impossible to take back. It would cement the break publicly and legally. My parents would be barred from contacting me, from coming to my home or workplace, from attempting any communication. It felt like freedom. We filed the paperwork in January. The hearing was scheduled for February, and I had to appear in court to explain why I needed protection from my own parents. I'd prepared a statement with my lawyer's help, documenting years of exclusion and emotional abuse, culminating in the recent harassment. Mom and Dad showed up to the hearing, looking shell-shocked, like they genuinely couldn't believe I'd taken it this far. Dad wore a suit. Mom had clearly been crying. Lydia sat behind them in the gallery, glaring at me with pure hatred. The judge read my statement, reviewed the evidence, and asked my parents if they had anything to say. Dad stood up. Your Honor, this is a misunderstanding. We love our daughter. We've always loved her. This whole situation has been blown out of proportion. Sir, the judge said, cutting him off with a calm, firm voice. I've reviewed the documentation your daughter submitted, including a photo album you sent her containing pictures of family vacations she was excluded from. Can you explain the purpose of sending that? Dad faltered. We thought she'd like to see the memories. Memories of trips she wasn't invited on. Silence. The judge granted the restraining order. My parents were barred from contacting me for 1 year, with the option to renew. They had to stay at least 500 feet away from me, my home, and my workplace. Any violation would result in arrest. Mom started crying, loud theatrical sobs that echoed through the courtroom. Lydia put her arm around her, both of them performing grief for an audience. I felt nothing. Warren held my hand as we left the courthouse. How do you feel? Free. The restraining order held. My parents tested it once, showing up at a restaurant where Warren and I were having dinner. Someone must have told them where we'd be. I called the police immediately, and they were escorted away before they even made it inside. The violation was documented. They didn't try again. Life continued. I got promoted to VP of Digital Strategy. Warren and I started talking seriously about children, about the family we wanted to build. Patricia and Roger gave us their blessing and started knitting baby blankets speculatively. The first year without my family of origin was strange, but increasingly peaceful. No guilt-ridden phone calls. No last-minute demands disguised as invitations. No photo albums designed to remind me of my place. I sent Aunt Lorraine a Christmas card. She sent one back with a simple note. Proud of you for choosing yourself. Sometimes I still think about that photo album. All those vacations, all those years of exclusion, carefully documented. Mom thought she was reminding me of what I'd missed, of where I didn't belong. Instead, she'd given me undeniable proof. Proof that I'd spent my whole life trying to earn love from people who never intended to give it. Proof that the problem was never me. The restraining order expires next month. My lawyer asked if I want to renew it. Yes, I said immediately. Your parents could contest it. The original grounds were harassment, but if they've maintained the no contact, a judge might not see the need. They only maintain no contact because they were legally required to. The second that order expires, they'll start up again. She nodded. Then we'll file for renewal. Warren thinks I should keep it in place permanently. You're happier without them. Why give them another chance to disrupt that? He's right. The past year has been the best of my life. We're trying for a baby now, planning the nursery, talking about preschools and parenting philosophies. Patricia and Roger are over the moon, already planning grandparent trips and making lists of children's books to buy. My child will never know what it's like to be left behind. My child will never watch their family pack suitcases while being told they don't fit in. My child will grow up surrounded by people who actually want them around, who include them not out of obligation, but because love means showing up. Sometimes I wonder if Mom thinks about those vacations differently now. If she ever regrets the choice to exclude me, or if she's rewritten the narrative so thoroughly in her mind that she genuinely believes she did nothing wrong. I wonder if she tells people her daughter abandoned her, leaving out all the years she abandoned me first. Mostly, though, I don't think about her at all. Last week, Warren and I booked a trip to Scotland. Just the two of us, before the baby comes and international travel gets complicated. Patricia and Roger are watching our dog. Kimberly made us a list of must-see castles and whiskey distilleries. I posted the booking confirmation on social media because I've stopped hiding my happiness to make other people comfortable. The caption read, "Adventure awaits with my favorite person." My inbox stayed quiet. The restraining order is still in effect. My family can't comment, can't call, can't demand explanations for my choices. I'm going on vacation with someone who wants me there,